Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal forensic detective story. It's an absolute masterclass in resolving a massive, decades-old identity mix-up using a blend of old-school archival digging and cutting-edge genetic science. We're talking about the forensic genealogy of a man named Samuel S. Alvarez, born in 1888, whose actual historical footprint was completely obscured for generations.
So let's just get right into it. We have to start with the core problem, a major historical knot that researchers call the San Antonio Contradiction. For years, the family history for this line was just fundamentally derailed. Why? Well, early researchers fell into a really classic genealogical trap. They accidentally took two completely different men named Samuel Alvarez, who happened to be living in Texas at the exact same time, and merged them into a single, kind of Frankenstein-like persona.
Basically, researchers were up against two competing profiles. On one side, you had a Samuel Alvarez living up in Amarillo, representing a lineage that had migrated over from New Mexico. On the other side, you had our guy, the San Antonio Railroad pensioner. His known world was firmly anchored in Bexar County, specifically at a documented 1940 address, 314 South San Jacinto Street over on the west side. But man, for decades, the paperwork for these two men was just hopelessly tangled together. All right, moving to Section 1, the Harlingen smoking gun. So what finally untangled it? The documentary Smoking Gun turned out to be this exact transcription of a mechanics and material man's lien. It was filed on October 12, 1965, with the Cameron County Clerk. Executed just 4 years before his death, this legal property document permanently places Samuel S. Alvarez down in Harlingen, right in the Rio Grande Valley. Plus, it explicitly names him as a single man. That detail is huge because it aligns perfectly with his known marital timeline, and it definitively separates his paper trail from the guy in Amarillo.
You know, it's documents like this that really bring history to life. He wasn't just some abstract name on a census. He was a real homeowner improving his property. This contract with the Harlingen Lumber Company was for $450 total. But the real humanizing detail? It's right there in the terms. He was paying it off in tangible, $25 monthly installments starting in November of '65. It just gives us this incredibly concrete, lived-in reality of his twilight years.
Now, you might be wondering, what about the end of his life? His death on May 1, 1969 was a mystery for the longest time. Why? Because his record couldn't be found in Bexar County or Cameron County. Well, the documentation from his career as a railroad pensioner actually explains the whole thing. Historically, if railroad workers had serious medical needs, they were transported to the Southern Pacific Hospital in Houston. So if Samuel died while under their care, his death certificate would naturally be filed with the Harris County Clerk. It's honestly a perfect example of why you have to follow the professional paper trail when the geographic one goes cold.
Okay, that brings us to Section 2, shattering the ghost narrative.
See, previous researchers were completely misled by this fabricated ghost paper trail. Digital algorithms and early paper research falsely pointed to a 1911 marriage for Samuel down in Guanajuato, Mexico. And because it popped up in digital family trees, people just accepted it as fact. It spread like wildfire. But, as we're about to see, biology tells a vastly different story.
Enter modern science. DNA triangulation completely shattered that Guanajuato narrative. Researchers isolated what's known as the Bernal-Garcia signature. This is a massive 58 mega base pair block of shared DNA. Basically, it's a giant, undeniable chunk of identical genetic code sitting right there on chromosome 9. This isn't a guess, guys. It is mathematical proof that the family's true biological roots are in Hualuises and Montemorelos, in the state of Nuevo Leon. It definitively debunks that digital ghost algorithm.
Let's dig deeper into that in Section 3, the biological proof. This right here is what I call the visual hammer of lineage exclusion. When targeted DNA analysis was run against the descendants of that Amarillo line we talked about earlier, the result? 0.0 centimorgans of shared DNA. Nothing. The Amarillo lineage is biologically excluded. They are not related, period. Conversely, autosomal testing identified a truly critical 257 centimorgan match. And remember, centimorgans are just the unit we use to measure shared DNA. This match was with a verified descendant of the San Antonio and Harlingen line named John Rodriguez. In the world of genetic genealogy, finding a 257 centimorgan match is a massive deal. It falls squarely within the statistical threshold for a second cousin relationship. This scientifically confirms the biological intersection of the Alvarez and Guyuna lines out of Montemorelos. So, the really crucial point is just how deep this biological proof goes. The direct male lineage carries paternal haplogroup EV13. You can think of it like a deep ancestral barcode passed directly from father to son. It serves as a permanent dialogical voucher for this specific branch. And what's absolutely amazing is that it forensically resolved a long-standing family mystery. It proves that a totally separate local family, the Argujos, actually share this exact haplogroup. It represents an unbroken male line connection, proving that the Argujos family is biologically identical to the Alvarez line. They share a single biological core, despite having completely different surnames. Which leads us to Section 4, Case Closed, Biological Truth. Let's take a look at this timeline and map the true, corrected migratory pipeline that the Alvarez family actually followed. Step 1. Their biological and historical roots anchor in Nuevo León, Mexico, and that's proven by the Chromosome 9 signature. Step 2. Fleeing the Mexican Revolution, the family establishes a geographic anchor at 314 South San Jacinto Street in San Antonio by 1940. And finally, Step 3, Samuel S. Alvarez spent his twilight years down in Harlingen, Texas, proven by that 1965 mechanics lien. The San Antonio contradiction is fully and finally resolved. Which brings us to a final, really provocative thought. If a single digital algorithm error can create a ghost narrative that derails a family's history for decades, only to be corrected by a 58 megabase pair block of DNA and a $25 a month lumber contract, how many other family trees out there are hiding profound biological truths behind ghost paper trails? It really makes you rethink all the accepted histories we just take for granted. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into forensic genealogy gave you a fresh perspective on exactly how we uncover the past.